Hello, and welcome to episode 91 of 10,000 Stitches podcast, a podcast that happens at who knows what frequency, all about the joys of knitting. Thanks for joining me this week. My name is Andy. If you were looking for me on the interwebs, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Ravelry as Purlbug, P-U-R-L-B-U-G. You can find my blog at thepurlbug.com, and then we have the 10,000 Stitches podcast group on Ravelry. If you're looking for links to anything I mentioned today, any patterns or shops or anything like that, if you're watching via the embedded video on the blog post or the Ravelry thread, everything will be linked right below the video. If you're watching this on YouTube, in the description box below the video, there will be a link to the blog post, and then you can go there, and then, like I said, everything will be linked right below the video. So I'm currently recording on Sunday, April 1st, so happy Easter, although for you guys it will be Tuesday, April 3rd before this goes up. So happy late Easter, I guess. Also, I will not be doing any sort of like April Fool's jokes or anything because, again, you guys will be seeing this later. And also, I really hate April Fools. I am just not a person who enjoys like practical jokes and pranks and things. I find them not at all funny. So April Fools is like my least favorite holiday ever. So you will be getting none of that from me. But otherwise, yeah, it's going to be probably a little bit shorter episode because I don't have a ton to talk about. But on the other hand, I might have a lot to talk about. I might wind up just yakking on and on. So I guess we'll kind of see how that goes. And I also apologize if there's just a little bit more background noise than normal. Now that it's getting into spring and the weather's getting nicer, I actually have the window here in my bedroom open. So we're going to see how long we can keep that open. But it might mean that you guys will hear a little bit more street noise than normal. So we'll see. But otherwise, I have no finished objects to show off. I'll do some, works in progress, both of which are new cast-ons. We'll talk about some sort of future stuff. We'll talk about knit-along stuff and question of the week, and then we'll do some chit-chat. So yeah, let's get into it. So I have two whips that I'm not even going to show you guys because, like, even though it's been 2 weeks since I last recorded. Also, speaking of that, I know I said when I last recorded that, oh yeah, there'll be an episode up next week, which would have been last week. I actually did sit down to record episode 91, and I recorded an entire podcast, and there were no technical difficulties or anything. Like, there's no good reason why I didn't put it out, just that it was really bad. Like, I don't know what happened, but like I always feel when I'm recording, I'm like, oh man, like that was really bad. And then usually when I go to edit it, it's like, no, it was fine. You just get kind of self-conscious. But last week, it was a different sort of feeling. Like, I was just like, no, like this time it really is bad. I didn't even edit it. I didn't even rewatch the clips. I just was like, nope. I think because I was trying to sort of say things without saying them, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but yeah, it was just not good. So I did sit down to record it, and I just couldn't even bring myself to watch the clips and edit it. So that's why there was no episode last week. Anyway, so the two pairs of socks that I'm working on, the socks for Wesley and then the paraphernalia socks, I don't think I've touched them. I certainly haven't touched them since I tried to record last week. Like, I literally haven't touched them all week. And even then, like when I sat down to record last week, I was saying like, oh, well, I haven't really made any progress. So I don't know what's been going on with those. I'm just not really feeling in the mood to knit them. I've really just been wanting things that are like stupidly simple. So yeah, so I'm not even going to show them off because I have no progress to show on them. So yeah. Anyway, let's talk about some other works in progress. So I'm going to show off the smaller one first because this is the one that I have less to say about, and then I'll show off the bigger one. But this is a sort of commission from Wesley. He decided that he wanted me to knit him a tie because I know I've talked about this a little bit, but he in February moved to Alabama to start a new job, and this new job has more opportunities for him to like dress a little bit nicer, and so some days he actually wears a tie to work. He doesn't have to, but some days he likes to, and so he wanted a knit tie. And there are patterns out there for knit ties, but with Wesley I sort of have the interesting conundrum in that, I mean, any of you guys who have seen my vlogs will know this, but he is shorter and just all around like a smaller person than most men. Like he's far smaller than the average man. And so things like ties can very quickly look out of proportion on him because he's just smaller, right? So he prefers skinnier ties. They need to be shorter, right? All of that kind of stuff. So I kind of, looked around a little bit at what tie patterns are out there, and then I decided to just improvise. And he kind of agreed that that was a good idea, right? So I'm just kind of doing something that I think will work, and then he will try it out and give me sort of feedback on like, okay, it needs to be, this and this, and you need to change these things about it, and then I will actually knit him the real tie. So this is what I currently have, and this is using the yarn that I used on my my really heavily modified poly cardigan. I just had some leftover of this. This is really pretty blue yarn, and it turns out this is actually a color that he would never wear anyway. So whatever. But it's something that's nice for me to work with, and it's something that I had that was extra. So this is kind of where I am so far. So that's sort of what it looks like. So on the bottom here, I sort of have like that nice little sort of skinnier bottom section, and then it's just seed stitch basically. And that's where I am. So I have, I don't even know how much, this much done. So I'm not sure how long it needs to be before I start decreasing, because it does need to get skinnier, sort of at the point where it would go into the knot, I think. So my guess is that it needs to be probably, I don't know, 6 inches longer at least. And you'd think that this would go really fast because it's only 15 stitches wide, but it's a lot of turning and stuff. So I've been picking away at this every so often. There's not a huge rush for it. It's just kind of whenever I can get it done, then I will send it to Wesley or, bring it to him. But, yeah, so that's that. Sorry about that. I got a call from my little brother and I really wanted to take it. So anyway, so that tie, like I said, I'm just kind of making up the pattern as I go. So I'm pretty sure that once I kind of figure out what it is that I'm doing, I will probably, put the full pattern that I use on my Ravelry project in case anyone wants to use it as well. But, yeah, we'll just sort of see how that plays out. But yeah, not much to that. So let's talk about my other work in progress. And this is actually something that I started not this weekend, but last weekend. So I've been working on it for, an entire week. And this has basically been the only thing I've been working on other than the tie. And this is a pattern by Martina Behm. I actually, again, not this past Friday, but the Friday before I started this project, I decided to buy 3 patterns from Martina Behm, and these, I've actually bought one of her patterns before because she's the designer who did the Viajante, which if you've been around for a while, you will know, actually ties in nicely, that this yarn was originally dyed to make a Viajante, and then I just sort of didn't, it sort of was an idealized wardrobe piece that I thought I would like, and then it turns out, well, then I decided that I wouldn't like it, and so I kind of scrapped the project and made a sweater out of that yarn. But anyway, I really like her style, and especially because a lot of her stuff is very sort of mindless knitting, and it's really sort of fun shapes, and I really just enjoy her style. So I decided, I had a couple patterns from her that I really wanted, and so I just decided, like, you know what, let's do this. So actually, speaking of the Viajante, right? So the reason that I scrapped the Viajante was because at the time I was like, I don't really wear shawls. Like, this doesn't really seem like a practical thing for my wardrobe. And what's funny, and someone said that this would happen, or someone said that the exploration station was sort of like their gateway shawl into wearing more shawls, and that has totally been the case for me too. Like, the exploration station and the couple of like longer, skinnier shawls, like my bias shawl and then my super simple sock shawl, all 3 of those have really sort of been like a gateway thing into getting me to wear more shawls. And so now I'm kind of like, okay, now I see where shawls have a place in my wardrobe and I want more of them. So the 3 patterns that I got are the Matchmaker, the Match and Move, and Rose Candy. So I will try and pop pictures up on the screen right now of all 3 of those, like kind of what they look like. But basically, Matchmaker is, well, we'll talk about Matchmaker in a second. So Match and Move is sort of a big asymmetric shawl that is sort of similar in construction, based on what I can see, to like the Find Your Fade, where it sort of has that very distinctive shape that the Find Your Fade has. And like there's a fair number of patterns out there right now that sort of have this same shape. And this one is employing the same thing as well, but it doesn't have any of like the weird lace stuff. Like I really don't want to find your fade because it's just, I'm not really interested. So yeah, I thought that this would be sort of a good template for kind of making one of those shawls. And then the rose candy is sort of a really interesting like tube cowl shawlette sort of thing, where it's all garter stitch as far as I can tell, but it's sort of, you know, you can wear it sort of with the tube pulled over your head like a cowl, or depending on how long you make it, it can sort of be like a shawlette. Like, I'm really excited about it, and we'll talk a little bit about that one because I have some yarn picked out to make one. We'll talk about that in my, you know, kind of what's coming up next. So the Matchmaker. So the Matchmaker sort of starts out as this big, huge, asymmetric sort of triangular shawl thing. And then, you know, and it's just all garter. And then what you wind up doing is you wind up joining sort of part of this big long edge that you have. And you sort of fill that gap in, and then it becomes a big sort of tube, so that you can kind of wear it. It's sort of like a cowl slash shawl, right? So it's sort of like a big, huge loop. And so if you want to wear it as a cowl, you kind of like loop it over. It's really cool. So let's talk about my mine. So right, so this is mine, and I'm sort of in a phase right now where it's a little bit hard to show because I have two different yarns attached right now. But the pattern is written for a fingering weight version, a DK version, and then she also has sort of a freestyle version, which is meant to work with any weight yarn, and it's more so just a general formula for how to do it. So I am sort of doing the fingering weight version, except I'm not following her sort of stripe pattern. I'm just doing my own stripe pattern, but I will sort of use her stitch counts for it. And what's really interesting is that I think Martina Behm must have a really, really loose gauge, because she worked her fingering weight version on a US 1.5, I think, and I'm working mine on a US 4 because I know that with fingering weight yarn, a US 4 gives me sort of the shawl fabric that I like. But she must just have a really loose gauge, because I can't imagine knitting a shawl with that size needle and fingering weight yarn. Anyway, so this is what it looks like. Is this the, nope, this is the wrong side. This is the right side. Okay, so this is where I am so far. So if I can sort of spread this end out. So the bottom point down there where you can see the yarn hanging off, that's where you start, right? So you start with casting on just a couple stitches down here at the bottom, and then you sort of work, you know, side to side, obviously, going up, and you wind up with this really long triangle sort of thing. And as you can see, you increase more quickly on one side than the other, so you wind up with kind of one long side and one short side, and then you have all of these stitches along the top. And so eventually what will happen is you sort of join together these ends here, right? So you know, you join together the two ends, but it's not, you're not really joining them because you never work in the round, right? So you kind of bring the two ends together, and then you bind off some stitches along this top edge, and then you sort of fill in the gap to sort of make the shawl. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense. Hopefully it will, I'll try to explain it better, obviously, once I'm done with it, or once I've moved on to the joining part, because sort of when I look at the pictures, I had a hard time figuring out how the shawl works. But like when you sort of look at the pattern and see the pattern itself, it's like, oh, okay, I get that. But the nice thing is that it's all garter stitch. It's all worked back and forth. You never have to work in the round. And it's just really nice sort of brainless knitting. So let's talk about the yarns that I'm using. This bottom yarn, let's see if I can get it close enough to actually focus without bonking the microphone with my needles. So this bottom yarn is an 80/20 Superwash Merino nylon blend that I dyed myself, and this was just dyed super speckly using Kool-Aid, and this was dyed quite a while ago. So I had some other plans for this yarn, but I just decided, you know what, that wasn't happening. So I figured I would go ahead and put it in this shawl because it perfectly complements the other yarn I want to use, which let me give you a close-up and then I'll refocus the camera, sort of. So this is the other yarn, and here it is in the ball. So that's what the other, and of course it's getting really washed out by the window, but this is, come on. There we go, that's a little bit better. So this is what the other yarn looks like. So this is what they look like together. Yeah. So, so this yarn, the darker yarn, is actually, I talked about this the last time I recorded. I mentioned that I had some yarn that was coming to me in the mail, but it hadn't arrived yet. This is it. So this is yarn that I ordered from Erin of Holland Handmade, and it is I believe it's an 80/20 Superwash BFL nylon blend. It's a 2-ply, and this is one of her wildflower colorways, which is sort of like a one-of-a-kind colorway that she sort of does as she's trying to exhaust some of her other dye, I believe. So if you watch Wool Needle's Hands, I think this is like the Lucky Strike colorways. Like, it's sort of the same concept. So yeah, so this is just really beautiful, and it produces this really beautiful sort of mottled effect. And it has little flecks of color in there, little itty bitty speckles of color in there. And so that's why I thought it would really complement this other brighter sort of speckled yarn really well. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I'm sort of doing a little section right now where I'm striping the 2 yarns, and then I will just keep knitting until I run out of this, because I'm about halfway through this ball. And then I'm going to do sort of the connecting part with this speckled yarn again. So I'm super excited for that. I think it's going to be a really good versatile wardrobe piece because it's sort of neutral. Because even like the not neutral part kind of just has like a lot of colors in it. And so I think that will really work. And I'm super excited to sort of see how it turns out and get to wear it. So yeah, there's that. So that's my works in progress right now. Like I said, I've mostly been working on this because it's really like you know, doing the increases and stuff, once you kind of know what you're doing, it's like super duper easy. And I've just been really sort of craving that sort of really mindless knitting lately. Like not even just like, oh, you know, I know how to make socks, right? Socks are pretty mindless. It's like, no, I need literally just garter stitch. So that's been really nice, and I'm really enjoying it. And you know, I'd say it's sort of like a half and half process versus product knit, because obviously I really want the finished object, but I'm really loving the yarns that I'm working with, and I'm really loving just like the calming nature of the pattern. And so, you know, maybe this is helping me transition to maybe not being a process knitter, but enjoying the process of knitting a little bit more. So let's come back to that rose candy, right? Rose candy? I feel like I keep getting that wrong. Yeah, the rose candy pattern that I was talking about, right? So that is one that I fell in love with about at the same time sort of as the Matchmaker. So it was kind of a toss-up, like which one I was going to make first. And I just couldn't help myself with wanting to use that beautiful yarn from Holland Handmade, so Matchmaker came first. But I already have my yarn picked out for the rose candy. So let's talk about that, because that's the only thing that I sort of have like really planned. So that's a 2-color sort of cowl shawlette thing, like I was saying. And in the pictures for the pattern, I think she has it in like pink and white, or 2 colors of pink, something like that. I am learning to like pink more, but I didn't really want to do it in pink. Plus, like, I want to clear out some stuff for my stash. So I thought that I would use these 2 yarns together. So if you remember from Vlogmas, I guess, this is some yarn that I picked up when I went up to New Hampshire over Christmas break to visit Wesley, and this was at a little local yarn store up where he was living. And this dyer is one of the owners of the store, so she only sells her yarn there. So I picked this up, and I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with it, and I had thought maybe I would use it as a giveaway prize, but I've decided I'm going to be selfish and keep it for myself. And it's just these really beautiful like greens and reds and creams, and just beautiful, beautiful. And so I was like, I want this to be part of that cowl, because of course it's also a 100% superwash merino, so it's not really sock yarn, but it is fingering weight yarn. And so then I thought that what would be the perfect thing to go with it would be this skein of this is the Stroll Sparkle Base from Knit Picks, and this is one that I dyed relatively recently, and it's getting really blown out by the window, but it's a beautiful sort of orangey red color, and I just thought that they would go really well together. So yeah, this is what I'm gonna make the rose candy out of, and I'm super excited for it. I think it'll turn out really well, and you know, I'll keep you guys updated on that. But otherwise, I don't really have a ton of concrete plans. because things are just cray-cray right now. So I figure, you know what, the less planning, the better, because who knows kind of what headspace I'll be in when I go to start a new project. And so I want to just be free, like float freely on the breeze and see where it takes me. So that's that. In terms of, let's see, knit along stuff. So today's April 1st, so we still have a whole month left in the botanical cal. So that's, as a reminder, a color theme of green and a technique theme of lace. We've had lots of finished objects coming in, so that's great. And like I said, you still have a whole month left, because that will end on April 30th. And as a reminder, the prize yarn is going to be this crazy awesome neon yarn that I picked up when I was in Alabama last time, from Gwyn's Spins. And this is the prize yarn because the next theme will be neon, so that fits perfectly. We also have the Exceedingly Vanilla Cal going on, which is in it along for my vanilla sock pattern. That runs until April 15th, so you still have about 2 weeks left for that. Still haven't decided what the prize for that's going to be, but yeah, if you want to make a pair of socks using my pattern, get on in there. So yeah, that's knit along stuff. I have no dyeing to show off. Although maybe I'll dye something this afternoon. I do have a couple skeins of yarn to dye still, so maybe I'll do that this afternoon. I don't know. But I don't have any to show off right now. And question of the week. So how's your spring shaping up? Right? So it's April now. I'd say we're firmly into spring. So how is your spring shaping up? It has finally started getting a little bit warmer here in Richmond. Like, we did have like a freakishly warm sort of like week or 10 days or so, like way back in February, I think. It was like really, really warm for a little while, and then it got cool again. And so it was a pretty cool sort of gross March, which was kind of a bummer. But now it seems like it's finally warming up. And I think this time it's for real, right? I knew the last time that it wasn't going to stay warm, but I think this time it might actually be warming up for real. And it's just been sort of like all around warmer. So that's been really nice. Like, it was actually nice enough yesterday that I went out for a run, which was great. I mean, the running itself wasn't great, but it was nice to like be outside and getting the fresh air. So yeah, so that's been really nice. So how is your spring shaping up? Or I guess for my friends in the Southern Hemisphere, how is your autumn shaping up, right? Because you guys would be getting into autumn, I'm assuming? Yes. Okay, so how is the season that we're currently headed into treating you? What's kind of the outlook? I'm going to talk a little bit about, more about that kind of stuff in my chit chat. But yeah, I'm glad that it's finally getting warmer here, and I'm glad that we're getting into spring, because I'm really looking forward to spring and summer this year. So yeah, that's kind of that. So I think that's going to be it for the knitting sort of stuff. Sorry if it was a little bit weird, a little bit short, a little bit all over the place. Yeah, it's sort of weird that I ever start recording an episode kind of knowing what the title is going to be, because normally I sort of take the title from something that I say during the episode, but this week I sort of already knew what the title is going to be, and it's going to be something to do with refocusing. I'm not exactly sure. Future me will figure out exactly what it's going to be, but I kind of knew that it was going to be something to do with like refocusing or something like that. And again, I'll talk more about that in chit chat, but it is weird kind of going in knowing already what the title is going to be, and kind of just like knowing how that sort of shapes the way that I talk about things. But anyway, if you were only here for the knitting stuff, thanks very much for hanging out, and I will see you guys probably in 2 weeks, because I think I'm going to be going back to a sort of bi-weekly schedule, just because I'm not doing a ton of knitting right now, and so I think weekly I just won't have anything to talk about. So I will probably see you guys in 2 weeks, although I know that I was also tagged for the Fiber Friends tag, which I don't even know what that is. I'm really behind on my podcast, but I know that I was tagged for it, so maybe I don't know what it is, but I'm pretty sure it's like you record something answering questions with another person. So I don't think it has to be your partner. I don't think so. I'm not sure, but I know my mom is going to be visiting me next weekend, so maybe I'll record that with her. So maybe there'll be something up next weekend, but or next week. But otherwise, it'll probably be 2 weeks before I see you guys again with a normal episode. So yeah, until then. But if you are interested in hearing what's going on in my life and all of that stuff, stick around and we'll do some chit chat. let's do some chit chat. So yeah, what's been going on in my life? First, sort of like the concrete things, right? So work has been busy. Just, you know, with everything. Especially because we've been trying to put in some funding requests for the student organization that I am the advisor of. We've been trying to put in some funding requests for the fall, so like that hopefully is going to wrap up pretty soon here, and I don't have to be thinking about that as much anymore. But just in general, this semester has just been a little bit busier than in the past, and I actually just found out, well, we'll see if this winds up remaining true, but I think I had talked maybe a couple weeks ago about the fact that I was going to be teaching a real class in the fall, and I was super excited about it. Turns out now I'm not going to be teaching that class. They had to, you know, just reshuffle a couple things around in the schedule, and you know, that class wound up going to someone else. So I'm a little bit bummed about it because I was super excited about it, but like at the same time, like it kind of actually works better for my schedule for the fall anyway, because I want to take 2 classes in the fall instead of just the one that I have been, you know, doing normally. So like it actually works a little bit better to have a little bit lighter teaching load. So yes, but the trade-off is that I will be teaching a real class over the summer. So instead of having an entire semester, I will have 8 weeks to teach a class. So, and it also means that I have to be prepared a heck of a lot sooner than if I were teaching the class in the fall. So, that's been just a little bit crazy. Yeah, like just in general, work just seems busier this semester than maybe in previous semesters. So yeah, so I've been doing that. And I guess maybe like let's talk a little bit about this whole refocusing thing, right? So I know I talked about this forever ago, and I forget even what my episode title for that, maybe like 4 slices of pizza, right? Where I was sort of talking about how like you have 4 sort of areas to your life, and you have to decide how you're going to devote your energy among those 4 things. And those 4 things are, what is it? Like health, work, family, and friends, something like that. And at the time I was, you know, kind of talking about how I wanted to redistribute things. And I'm sort of at that point again right now, where it's just like, when I sort of look at the amount of free time that I have, you know, in a day or in a week or whatever, right? The amount of time that I have to work on my own things, right? So time that is not spent working or in class, stuff like that. You know, that time is obviously finite, and you have to sort of decide how are you going to distribute that time among the different things that you want to do. And so for quite a while, I was distributing a ton of time to knitting, right? Like I was really doing a lot of knitting, and that was taking up a lot of my time, which is totally fine, right? And I enjoyed it, but lately I've been thinking that, you know, there's some other things that I need to devote the time to, and obviously that time has to come out of knitting. So that's why I'm not going to be doing as much knitting probably coming up, and it's why I haven't been accomplishing as much, because, you know, I want to spend more time reading, right? It's hard for me to read and knit at the same time, so I've been trying to devote more time to reading. I also want to make my health slice a little bit bigger, right? So I think we all gain a little bit of weight over the winter. I put on, I don't know, some weight. I am currently sitting about 5 pounds higher than where I would like to be ideally, which I know like probably a lot of people are like, oh, you don't need to lose any weight, which I feel like is always a really annoying thing. Like as a relatively lean person, like everyone just discounts like that you might actually want to like lose weight or even just get a little bit fitter and leaner. But it's like, you know, I'm about 5 pounds heavier than where I would like to be, and I would like to lose those 5 pounds. So I really am sort of trying to focus on like my eating and actually exercising again. Or at least if not exercising, like being more active, because of course, again, doing a lot of knitting means a lot of sitting on my tush, and I don't want to be doing that. I want to be going out for walks, and I want to be, you know, doing that kind of stuff, which means less time for knitting. And just in general, I'm trying to just sort of, I don't know, just refocus on like figuring out like what is important to me, because I think sometimes it can get really easy to just kind of go on autopilot, and you just, you know, at one point you decided like, oh, this thing or these things are important to me, and that's what you're devoting a lot of your time and energy to. But it's also really important to every so often step back and say like, are these things still really important to me? Like, are these still the things that I should be devoting all of my time to? And so that's kind of what I've been doing, and I've just been, reallocating sort of my pizza among the different things that are important to me. So yeah, so that's just been something I've sort of been thinking a lot about lately and sort of working on, and it's been taking up a lot of mental energy because, of course, anytime you try to change your habits, that takes a lot of mental energy. So I feel like some days I will come home, and I haven't been taking my knitting with me to work as much because I want to, like, if I have some downtime at work, I'd rather be reading a book, right? Because I'm trying to read more. So it's like I haven't been knitting as much at work, so I don't get to knit until I come home. But what's really crazy is some days I have just used up so much mental energy by the time I come home that I literally cannot do anything. Like it's not like I have used up all my physical energy, right? Like I'm not coming home and getting right into bed, but it's just, I can't do anything. And so like some nights I'll just come home and I will just sit and watch YouTube or Netflix for hours on end. And, of course I talk to Wesley sometime during that, and then I go to bed because it's like I've used up so much brain power during the day trying to, change my habits that it can just be exhausting by the end of the day. So yeah, that's, it seems like I haven't really been doing a lot and I don't really have a lot to report. And it's because if you look purely at like the things that I have been doing, like the sort of like physical efforts, like yes, they are small, but that's because a lot of this has been sort of like mental effort that I've been putting forth lately, and there's not a lot to show for it. So hopefully that made sense. I feel like anyone who's really tried to sort of like take a hard look at their life and like maybe get rid of some things that are not serving them and implement new things will kind of understand what I mean, and that it's just exhausting, and something's got to give. So yeah, so that's sort of been my life lately. I do have a little bit to talk about in terms of like, this sort of process that I'm going through, changing my habits and stuff in relation to a book that I read, but I actually am going to save that for a little bit later because I was telling Wesley about this book I read, and it's called Triggers, and I forget the name of the guy that wrote it, but anyway, I'll link it for this week in case you're curious. But I want to talk about it more in depth sometime later. But I was telling Wesley about this book that I read and how I think it's like one of the best books sort of about this topic, and like, how do you think and how do you change your habits and stuff that I've read lately. And he was so sweet. He immediately like went onto Amazon and bought it for me because I had a library book copy, and I had said like, this is a book that I think I will eventually pick up in paperback to like actually have in my collection, as a physical book, so I can go back and reference it. And he was like, oh, I'll just get it for you right now. And so he did. So it's on its way to me. So whenever it gets here, I will actually sort of prepare like maybe a book report, and we'll talk about it in depth. But yeah, so that's a thing. What else? I think I mentioned my mom is coming to visit me next weekend, so I'm super excited for that. She's going to be here for like 5 days or something. So that'll be really fun. I'll show her all the sights around here and everything, because she's actually never been to Richmond before. The only other time that she's come out this way, we met up in DC. And so she's never been down to Richmond, so I'm going to, show her all the sights because, of course, the weather should be nice. It should hopefully be warm enough that we can go do things outside, but not as hot as it gets here during the summer when you just don't want to be outside. So yeah, so that's super exciting. I'm really excited to have her come out and, hang out for a couple of days. And I'm trying to find a time to go see Wesley again because I actually haven't seen him in person since we moved him out to Alabama. So that's kind of a bummer because, in March, instead of going to see him, I went to go, see my dad and my brother for spring break. So yeah, so that just meant that I didn't have really time to go see Wesley. So sometime in April, I will be going to see him, and I'm very excited about that. So yeah, that's sort of been my life right now. Like I said, like I feel like I am doing a lot, but I don't really have a lot to show for it because a lot of what I'm kind of doing lately and devoting a lot of my time to lately is, sort of internal work, being the best version of myself, living my fullest life, however you want to say it, right? But there's not a lot to show for that, right? Like, it's just a matter of like, do I think I am a better version of myself today than I was yesterday? And, some days it's yes, some days it's no, but that doesn't mean that it's not worth trying. So So yeah, I guess that's kind of all I got. Again, sorry if this was a weird one. Sorry if it was a, short episode or something, but yeah, that's all I got. So I guess I will see you guys in 2 weeks, or maybe next week, who knows. But yeah, for now I'm gonna try and get this edited and just chill. I've really been having just like a chill weekend because I feel like, again, like I said, with all of this sort of mental energy that I've been spending sort of working on my life, I just have felt like this weekend I just needed to like not do things. Like I just needed to just chill and relax and just have a nice cozy weekend. So that's kind of what I've been doing. So I'm just gonna keep doing that because YOLO. But yeah, thank you very much for hanging out with me. And I hope you have a great 2 weeks until I see you again. Hope you had a good Easter. Even if you don't celebrate Easter, I hope you had a good day that Easter falls on. And yeah, I will see you guys again soon. Bye.